I love it, man. This is the before I do conversation. And I
Yeah.
think
Yes,
this
yes,
keeping it
yes.
real. People don't have
Keeping it real.
access to these type conversations and these type of questions, but also being able to
Yeah.
be vulnerable. Like, hey, this is what I'm going through right now, and I appreciate y'all giving me some nuggets
Yeah.
to make sure I get to the altar and feeling strong and good about it. So no, I appreciate that, but I can't help but think about how we ended the last episode.
Mm.
The last episode, I've heard so many different feedbacks from
Yeah.
people. A lot of family members and friends, female family members and friends, asking more questions like, okay, what's up with the next one?
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
come y'all left us hanging like that? So I couldn't
Yeah.
help but figure out, and we've been figuring this out, is how we come back to that conversation,
And we back.
because
We
I
back.
think we back in it, and we just gonna pick it right back up from where we left off. So
All right.
Quest dropped us
Yeah.
with some knowledge, and I think you had asked something. We can even rewind the track back. We might have to play it back, but you asked this question about what happens when you are in love with multiple people
Yeah.
at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, and you're in
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
situation where
Mm-hmm.
you're sharing your heart with multiple people and vice versa. And
Mm-hmm.
I just want to go back to that question because I think
Okay.
it was a cliffhanger.
And welcome to the 4050 Social Club. We are dedicated to helping Black men healthily transition in their 40s and 50s. We're going to be engaging in holistic topics around relationship, health, wealth, spirituality, and professionalism with transparency, accountability, and respect. Now, our voices weren't heard in our communities as we were growing up, as they are today. So we want to take an opportunity right now and establish and give back to all great humans. You're going to vibe with myself, Quest, CJ, Jamion, as we unlock eclectic areas throughout our lives while being in our 40s and 50s. So let's get it going.
All right, everybody, how y'all doing? We about to jump back into this 4050 before I do part two. So let's jump into it. I know everybody is wondering how things are going, how we doing with this wedding situation, and I cannot tell you,
Yeah.
man,
Two
man, I
weeks.
am
2 weeks.
too.
Yeah.
It's it's
Yeah.
Countdown.
it's even it's it's even less than that. You know what I mean? And I feel like I'm feeling all of it. This like
You right.
you talk to people, I'm feeling all that little like the little stresses that come with it, man. And I think people don't really talk about. You hear about it, but until you're really in it, you feel like that. 3 weeks out, the last episode, I was like, I'm cool, we good, everything cool, kind of skating and cruising along. Then that second week mark hits, and you start to recognize, okay, this need to be done, this need to be done. Okay, is this person taken care of? Okay, is
Yeah.
this plus one covered? Is the seating situation
Yeah.
done? Okay, you
Yeah.
spelled this person's
Yeah.
name wrong.
Hey,
It's
that's
like
for
all these
real.
things,
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. And then, babe looking at me like, where you at? Why is it not done? And then I'm like, and trying to juggle life in between,
Yeah.
juggling, planning for a wedding. I think it's just a lot. So I think I'm starting to feel the weight of it. And I know my baby is too. And I know we're both trying to do a good job of just not getting on each other, because we definitely operate at different paces, man. I'm the turtle,
Oh
she
man.
the hare, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
she like, come on. And I'm like, slow down, we good, So I think it's just trying to juggle through those nuances, man, has been a challenge for me. And I think from what I'm hearing is that this will just continue to be a part of it from here until it's over,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I just gotta strap up my bootstraps, man, and recognize that this is part of it. And I feel like everybody I've spoken to is like, you in it now, bro, and
Yeah.
just recognize that that's a part of it. So I'm trying to really make sure that I give myself some grace, I give my partner some grace, that we give each other
Yeah.
grace, To me,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
most important, and then also making sure that I'm doing my best, my very best, to stay grounded in some of those things that are important, so that I'm emotionally healthy through this process. Because
Wow.
it's very easy to get very emotionally unhealthy, and then you all start hitting on each other, and then you get to the altar and you looking at each other like, "What's up?" So.
Listen, listen,
Yeah.
listen.
Yeah.
That's why y'all need to take it out the other way.
Yeah.
What's that, man?
That's why you all that emotion, all that he was just
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
Uh
You
huh.
got to go the other way with
You
that.
gotta.
Not the this,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm
Get to
saying.
some
You know what
love
I'm saying.
making. Yeah.
It got to be some good making going on, and
Yeah. I got you.
you
I
gotta
got
get
you.
it. I don't know
I
why
got.
I'm trying to stay censored for our viewers. They know who I am, goddamn it. They know who I am. It need to be some good going
Boy.
on. And I'm letting you know right now, Jay.
I feel you.
I know, no, it's so much going on. There's just so many people saying things. It's so
Yeah.
many checklists. It's so many people that are like,
Yeah.
oh, we may or may not, and blah, blah, blah. I
Yeah.
remember that too. And I remember that I just had to look at her one day and say, hey, come here. Let me take
Yeah.
care of you for a moment. Cause,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
Yeah.
funny.
That's
yeah.
real. I think
Yeah.
that's real. And that's a
Yeah.
very great point, Quest. I am going to make sure that I deliver the mail on that
The
message.
mail, the
You just gotta show the clip. Just show the
You
clip. You didn't say it.
know
Your man said that. You know what I mean?
what I mean? And so
yeah.
bring us back up off the cliff, man. Bring us back up
Yeah,
off the cliff. So let's jump into it.
yeah. Yeah.
So I
So,
guess we talked about just have pick it back up. Have you ever been in a situation which clearly you have mentioned that you have, where you're sharing your heart with multiple people, and just kind of talk us through that because you shared some gems with
yeah.
us that I think people want to hear more about.
Yeah. First of all, I want everybody to know I wasn't wearing those glasses last week because I was trying to be cool. I had this thing going on with my eye, and now my eye's better, so there are no glasses anymore.
There
So I
we
wanted
go.
to make that because my cousins was clowning me in my cousins chat, so I wanted to make sure that I cleared that up. But
That's
yes,
what's up.
to go back to it, I know we left everybody with a cliffhanger last week, and I just wanted to make sure that people were listening and understanding that I feel, and I think there's a lot of other human beings that feel the same way, that you could honestly and genuinely love more than one person. I'm going to step back and take a premise of this for understanding and clarity to allow for people to know that I'm not in any way saying that everyone in some ways should follow a path of ethical non-monogamy or whatever you may call it that is outside the what I would say is the standard or the norm, which is monogamy, or that 1-to-1 ratio relationship. I want to start off by saying we're not going into a situation of judging at all. That's not who I am. I
That's
just
what's
want
up.
people to understand that from my aspect, there were very much times in my life where I was in love with more than one person. And then when I say in love, I mean that same feeling that you feel for the person that you say is the one, right? You
Right.
know, I think a lot of people don't think that another person could actually allow for them to feel that way. But that's where I challenge you, because I challenge you to allow for yourself to understand what that genuinely means to you. For me, what it means is that I have a person that checks off the boxes that I need checked off in all of those areas that I need them checked off. So mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever my connective situations are, whatever, even down to the points of, my don'ts, right? My, the deal breakers, if they would call them that. I want to make sure that the person really is going to be not just an extension, but be able to have their own individuality in that same space, right? So, coming back to the question again, because I don't want to lose track, I know for certain that I myself has experienced this many of times in my life. And
Wow.
currently, right now, is one of those times where I understand that the people that I'm involving my life with, I am in love with them.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it is a, there's nothing that I won't do for you. You know, it's that same feeling that you going to the altar right now. I, in some ways, share this moment and say to myself, I may have already been to that altar,
Mm,
Sure.
and not even gone to the altar at all. I may have created those, um, created all of those rituals and all of the memories, all of the boundaries, all of the connections in some ways that you would in just trying to get to know one other person.
mm,
I,
Um,
man,
yeah.
you got me thinking, man, because I'm up here like it's so. I think about, and I just want to chime in, like, because I couldn't help but think about
Hmm.
where I've been in my journey with relationships versus where I am now.
mm,
And
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think in my earlier years, and this is the interesting point. This is a very interesting dynamic because if I think about, you've been married before, you've got
Hmm.
married, earlier in life, and I
Hmm.
almost look at it like a flip flop. So like
mm,
during my earlier years in life, I was single, I was by myself, and I was definitely a person that would, you know, be have multiple ships and multiple ports and doing all these other things and traveled and all that James Bond 007. It was cool, but at the same time, I felt like I never fully gave
Hmm. Hmm.
love. Like I gave fragments of myself.
uh,
And
Hmm.
wow.
so, like, I never really
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
gave love, and it connects back to childhood trauma. I remember growing up, I was in love. I had my
Yeah.
first, elementary, middle school love, and it was that puppy love that people talk about, and my heart got broken. And I remember I was like in
Hmm.
seventh grade or something like that, and I was crying and everything. And I think that feeling that I had, I never wanted to have again.
Ooh.
So
Uh,
I
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
never
Hmm.
gave
mm,
fully of myself to people. Like I was
Hmm.
like, I'm never gonna
Yeah.
feel how I felt when I was 12, 13 years old. I never wanted that. And so
mm,
that defined how I navigated love. And
Hmm. Hmm.
now I look back now and I'm like, here I am, and I'm like, I ain't got time to
mm,
to navigate love with more than one person because it's just I got so many other things I want to do with my life. I want this to be secured. I ain't like you said. Ain't no. This is just where I am now. So I'm just
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about how the pendulum has shifted. You know, where you are now, I once was, but
mm,
Hmm.
and where you were, I am walking into. You know what I'm saying? So I think
Yeah.
those are
And I think
that's an
and I
interesting
think there's
dynamic.
still and I think that there's still difference there because even where I
Sure,
was,
there
like
are. Yeah,
to speak on that a little bit, because we talked about me being married twice,
yeah,
right? We talked about me being divorced twice, because I want to make that clear too. It's not like a situation of not being
yeah.
divorced and being, and I want to
mm,
really, really make this statement here. My partnerships are honest. They're genuine. They are vulnerable. They are transparent. They are built on that. A lot of people might sit in here and they will say right now, there's no way you done told these people everything. And I beg to differ. I beg to differ.
yeah.
I think the only way, and a lot of people will say, well, then you might lose an advantage or, oh, you can't give all your, but that's the thing. People are looking for that. People want
Mm,
that.
Yeah,
People want to feel
yeah,
safe. They want to feel secure with you. They
mm,
want to feel like that they can come to you and be able to discuss anything with you, right?
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
let me give you an example. I can give you an example. I'm with one of my partners and I have a moment where, I coughed a little bit too hard and something happened. Guess what? Who are you going to tell that to when you really want to tell and laugh about it?
uh, uh,
Majority of people are not going to do that. They just going to keep that shit to themselves and they going to let that shit roll. You know what I'm saying? But the connection that I have with my partners, I'm able to do that.
uh,
I'm able to just, it don't matter what it is. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
They know the deepest of deep.
yeah.
yeah,
They know the extent. If somebody said roll his tape, they'd be able to do it. And
Yeah.
I would be able to do that same exact thing for them in a
Yeah.
space that's genuine, in a space that's not judgmental. And I want to
Yeah.
go back to say that I identified these individuals after not only going through the therapy that I needed for my life, but after honestly taking a step after the therapy and saying, I still have to go through this therapy with you if
Mhm.
I'm going to actually be able to continue to have some sort of ship with you, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So they were also willing to go on the journey with me. And I think that's the thing. Like a lot of people say, well, how did you do that? It's not a how did you do that?
Yeah.
It was I just said, here's who I am.
Uh,
Yeah.
Right here at this
Right.
moment, this is me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
are you going to be able to accept that?
Right. Take it or leave
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
Right. And then the alternate part of that is, Chris, is saying, you know what? But you also have that same autonomy.
Right.
You
Right.
got the same autonomy. I'm not saying that this is just me doing this. I'm not saying that. No, be you. I'm good. You got another person or whatever like that. Other people, as long as I feel that these boundaries that we have created are followed by each other,
Uh-huh.
and held up by each other.
Yeah. Wow. Love it. Love it.
That's
All right.
interesting, man. It's so interesting, and I feel like this conversation could be its own episode. This
It
question,
could.
it
Easily.
could really be its own episode
Yeah.
because I've heard feedback. Some of the females and even me and Babe were talking about this. It's like, well, we want to hear from the ladies, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
wanting to hear the other side to the coin. At the same time, it's
Hmm.
like, well, this is a space for us to talk about the male perspective too. So it's like,
Sure,
how do we
sure, sure,
protect
sure.
the space where we can be vulnerable about these conversations? Because it's a whole lot of other podcasts and conversations that are happening where, the women's perspective is brought in, but also how
Mhm.
we protect this space to make sure men's voices can be heard in a healthy way. But I think
Yeah.
as we mature and matriculate, those conversations, I think we will be able to let women in and be like, let's have some dialogue here and talk about that.
Mhm.
But for
Yeah.
today, we're gonna keep it 100. So let's do it, man. This
Okay.
is so
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
No, this is good stuff. Well, I
Yeah.
was just gonna add in really quickly too, as I was listening to Quest talk about it, and when he teed it up last week, and just getting back to the question that you just asked of us or asked to Quest there, Jay. Like, do you see yourself potentially being in love with more than one person? I've never been in that
Hmm.
situation, but I say the
Hmm.
closest I've ever come to it was with me and Janine. We used to have this early disagreement about what it meant to be soulmates. So for her, because I was like,
Mm.
yeah, you're my soulmate. But for her, she was like, all right, soulmate means you and I are like the only two beings in the universe that could have created this. And I'm like, wow, like that's amazing. I'm glad that you see it that way. And I saw it slightly differently. She used to get really upset by that. I was like, no, I think that we're meant to be. And she's like, well, what do you mean? Like, how do you see me as a soulmate? And what I would say to her is the fact that we happened at the time when we happened, where both you and I were ripe for this to become what it is. Like, that to me was sort of a definition of soulmate. So it could have been potentially
Mm,
someone else, but the fact that it happened when it did, as it did, like this is what was meant to be. So again, I think we saw it slightly differently, but she used to see that as me saying I could see myself being like madly in love with more than one person. I don't know that I don't think that that's what I was saying. But I
yeah.
feel like that's the closest that I come to this particular conversation. But now I want to get back to you though, Quest, because we're on this. When you think about these multiple loves and having these attractions and affections to folks,
Hmm.
do you feel like that love was rooted in fantasy? Was it rooted in escape? Was it rooted in truth? And how do you think you differentiated between attention and affection?
Mm,
So I can definitely answer this question. I know that everything now has not been rooted in any fantasy or any type of escape. And the reason why I say that is because I was dealing with my own traumas. I was dealing with my own self and basically finding myself so I can be selfless to others. And I'm not saying that I'm completely healed from my journey, but I know that I'm a long ways away from where I was and was able to make a decision like this to be able to stand on my truth, because that's what you asked also, to be able to stand on my truth and how I felt and how I feel. So I feel like it's very intentional. And that's one other thing. I'm going to go back to a couple of things real quick, but I want to say this. It's very intentional. I was very intentional, and I continue to be very intentional in all aspects of these ships. Like it's a very situational thing that you say, I need to act, I want to act, I have to act, right? And you do those things because you want that person to see that you really love them beyond love itself. You
Mm,
have appreciated not only the love that they've given you, but the opportunity to love them at this level. Like
mm,
going back to what you said about soulmates,
mm,
I'm going to flip a couple of things just so that we can think about it. Who gave you the actual, knowledge that you should only think of things in twos?
mm, mm, mm.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
I mean, one could say that
Who?
it's biblical. One could say that
And then,
it's rooted
I
in
mean, I can
God
go.
and
Go
religion
so
and
many places there, right? Because
sure.
all of the religions and or majority of the main, if I can say it like this, mainstream religions are speaking from the 2 to 1, or understanding the oneness and how that with somebody else creates still one, right? How the family should still, if it's five, should still act in one way and one manner as one nucleus and understanding. And I get that. And if you bring that into a fold in a situation like I'm talking about, then you create community.
Mm,
You create a community almost that looks like what you see in all these other, I guess, polyamorous communities. But
mm,
what I'm speaking of is definitely different in a way in which I'm not saying that all of us have to kind of be in the same household and,
yeah.
you know, uh, 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 have that type of interaction. What I'm saying is that I'm creating healthy relationships from the beginning to the end, from the top to the bottom, from how a person feels about themselves to how they actually, go about doing their lives. And that person is doing the same for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing the
Mhm.
same thing for me. So everything that I felt and think that I in some ways deserve and need, I'm doing that for that person. I'm making sure that they understand that they are needed, that they are loved, that they are all of these things that they have always wanted. Not because just they want it, because that's how I want to treat me. I want to
Yeah.
treat you the same way.
Right.
I feel like that's how it should be. So
Yeah.
if you get to a point where you're like that with a person that now at this point in time, in some ways you're just getting to know, I feel like you are drastically further in the mental comprehension of
Mm,
what you feel love is to you at this point in time, because it now has blossomed in front of your face in a way that you've never experienced it without trauma.
mm,
Mm.
You've
Mm-hmm.
never took your eye off the trauma because in a lot of ways you probably didn't even know you were in it.
mm.
Right.
So when I go
That's
back
what's
to a
up.
situation and the question like saying, well, who taught you this oneness? What I'm
Yeah.
simply saying is the alternate part of that is now I got to create things to make it seem like you shouldn't be looking at nobody else.
Mm, mm,
Now there's all these other things that make us desire everything in twos.
mm,
And
mm.
that is the whole discussion for another day that we can open up
Wow.
around
Yeah.
this, right?
That's a
But
big one.
That's a
I
good
just
one.
want, in that question
That's a
that
good
you
one.
asked, how do I differentiate between the attention and the affection? I understand that I didn't lead with any of those. I
Mm,
led with intention. I
mm,
wanted to be intentional about getting to know them, learning what they felt their flaws were, and them learning the ones that I have.
mm,
Intentional about learning where they wanted to go in their lives and how I could help in, making sure that I could just be a helping part of that. Learning what it meant for both of us or all of us in some ways to work through situations of jealousy and guilt and whatever else that was, so that we can
Out.
understand how to improve better each
wow.
other, right? The symmetry of all of it is not to think about the romance. The symmetry of it all is to think about a companion and who that person is to you at all times. And I feel
Wow.
like if I feel like it's what we call intimate relationships.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we look at an intimate relationship and we might say this is purely, romantic. And a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
still think that that's what that means. But no, I have intimate relationships with my male friends.
Yeah,
You
sure,
know what I'm
sure,
saying?
sure.
Oh, I know them. I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
them like I know these women.
yeah,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I'm just not being romantic with them because that's not my desire.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But those are those my guys. You know what I'm saying? Y'all
Sure,
my
sure,
guys.
sure,
You
sure,
know what I'm
sure,
saying?
sure.
I'm getting to know both of you, and my desire and being intentional is to make sure that I ask those questions that allow you to understand that you can be safe around, feel safe around me. You can talk to me genuinely and understand that I'm not going to run out at any capacity at any point in time and tell your business,
Yeah.
and everything that comes with that. And I think that is the difference there.
Yeah.
There's a difference in attention and affection, but the difference is you are being intentional about speaking those things what the other person desires, so that not only satisfies them, but it also allows you to understand what satisfies you.
Wow.
Yeah, I think you bring up some great points, and I feel like in just hearing you and being able to share in the way that you've shared, a question comes to mind, but the question when I think about listening to your responses, I already know the answer. But
Hmm.
I still want to ask it because I think
Go for
somebody
it.
else
Go
may
for it.
have it. But
Yeah, yeah.
as you've walked through these different experiences of marriage, divorce, and to now, where you are in your relationships and your experiences, I feel like you have a lot of clarity in terms of where you are,
Hmm.
what you
Hmm.
want in a relationship or relationships. And I'm
Hmm.
curious about your journey as you've navigated through that. Were there
Hmm.
moments of
Hmm.
confusion? Were
Yeah.
there moments where you were grappling with certain things as we talked about religion and what we're taught
Hmm.
relationships should look like and
Yeah.
feel like? And maybe share with us some of your thoughts around how you got to this level
Sure.
of clarity where you are now.
Sure. So I was born into a Baptist Christian home where my grandmother and grandfather were very kind of like, we going to church, we doing this, blah, blah, blah. In a lot of ways, it's this, what would I call traditional Black family appeal. We're going to church on Sunday, we're doing this, we're, identifying this way. This is a man, this is a woman, that kind of growing up and upbringing. For me, I was fine with that because that's all I in some ways knew until my grandfather, like I said in one of our previous episodes, started really teaching me gender, started really teaching me sexuality and the way that he knew how to teach it. But I think me being understanding the dynamic of not just the sex of sexuality, but the connection of sexuality, started to kind of think about, you know, what that looked like for me in my life. Now, I had my son when I was 16, my oldest, right? So right there in my life, I felt it was going to
Mm-hmm.
be me and that person, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? And this
Mm-hmm.
is what it's going to be, and that's what it's going to be. And I was following what I knew. I was looking at what everybody else was doing, and I was gauging
Sure.
it at that point, right? And then I went to college.
Yeah, sure, sure,
And then I,
absolutely.
Ah,
and then I, and then
college.
I, and then I think when you think about like the whole experience of college, it's everything, right? And I'm not saying that you got to go to college experiences because you don't. You just have to be open minded to start listening to people and like other views and seeing other things. And when I got to college, I started seeing things that were not the same. Even though I was the same, there were a lot of things that weren't the same. People that were challenging even my ideology of the way I thought, because in some ways what I wasn't was mentally comprehending that there could be another way. There is another way. So I struggle with that, man. I struggle with
Mm-hmm.
it from a lot
Yeah.
of ways. I understood that even at the age of 17 and 18 that I actually could love someone else, not just be with them because I wanted to have sex with them, but I understood that I could have this feeling that I did for my oldest son's mother. I could have that same feeling for somebody else over here. You
Wow.
know, at that age, it wasn't justified. I was going around, I was cheating, I was doing stupid stuff, making up stuff to kind of like make
Sure.
me look a little bit better and things of that
Mm,
nature. And
mm,
even when I thought about, you know, really genuinely being in a healthy relationship with the wife my first wife, you know, even at that time, there was still bouts of just thinking like, you know, I know that we are like really, really transparent with each other, but I still felt like I wasn't giving her my 100% truth.
wow.
You know,
Wow. Yeah.
we would have a couple of open conversations, but you know, I'm also reading and listening and thinking to myself, I can't tell you everything.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? And I just didn't know, you know, I didn't know how to come out and say to her, look, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I feel like, you know, we can shape our marriage to be whatever it is. Like, I really, you know, would have loved for that to
Mm,
take off and be what it, you know, could have been, but it didn't.
Mm,
It didn't.
yeah. Yeah. Wow.
And when I look at me going later on, now I'm a choir director, now I'm this, now I'm that in the church, now I'm, you know, over here in computer land and doing that and all of that, that basically was coming all together. I'm divorced, you know, going through a situation where I'm trying to, at this point, find myself in and out
Mm,
of different relationships that have me in and out of different relationships and still trying to figure out what love looked like for me. What I was doing was creating my own traumas. What I was
wow.
doing was I was not being honest to myself and my feelings because I didn't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. What I
Mm,
was doing was I wasn't taking accountability for not telling this person how I felt. That's
mm,
what I was doing. And
yeah.
that
Yeah.
yeah.
led to getting into another amazing relationship that turns into a marriage that turns into a divorce
Wow.
because I decided that I wasn't going to you know, be honest with me,
Mm,
you know, accept accountability and
mm,
allow for me to be vulnerable enough to speak my real truth.
wow.
Yeah.
And
Man.
bro, I'm telling you, like I don't, you know, everyone has their different approach and everyone can say whatever they want on how they do it. Do that because everyone has a different approach to it.
Right.
What I'm
Right.
saying to you is how mine went. And I
Yeah.
know it wasn't until I stopped lying to me
Mm,
100%. When I stopped lying to it wasn't until then, it wasn't until I stopped lying to everyone else. And there's so many relationships that I don't have right now because I told the truth after the
right.
fact.
Wow. Wow. Damn.
But
Man.
that right there alone gave me the intentionality to be like, hey, I like you a lot. And I think we should, you know, definitely get to know each other. And I feel like we just see how it goes. But let me tell you a little bit about myself. I definitely am a person that wants to have more than one partner. And I want you to know this up front. And I want us to be able to dialogue and converse about what that looks like if you want. You know what I'm
Mm,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Absolutely.
a lot of times that conversation came up early, right?
Mm.
Because you know, a lot of
Well,
women
it
are
should.
straight to it because you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? A lot of women straight to it. You know, first five
Yeah.
minutes,
Let's
you
get
got
to it.
somebody?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody, and what you gonna say then is, you know, what you gonna say then? At that point in time, I let people know, look, I'm single and here's my situation with my partners. And it is one full sentence.
Yeah.
There are people here. I don't
Yeah.
want you to get it twisted. There are people here and this is what we doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you okay with that, then I'm okay. But if you're
Yeah.
not
Mm,
okay with that, then even if I didn't have nobody and was riding single by myself and still wanted to just be single and go around, I'm gonna tell you the truth. There's
yeah.
gonna be you and there's gonna be somebody else too, possibly. It just,
Man.
you know, it's just I want you to understand that. And I want you to also be able to do the same if that
Yeah.
is your desire and will.
Right. Right. Right.
I
Wow.
think you
A
bring.
lot
I
of
think
times
you.
that's
Yeah.
where it is. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
little like not being able to have that conversation when I was I wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. I was lying to myself,
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
lying to
I
me.
think. I think that clarity that you mentioned is important, and you made me think of something too. Is before I do is not just necessarily marriage. Before I
Mm-hmm.
do can also mean any relationship. Before I
Yes,
do
bro.
any relationship, I need to have
Anything.
clarity in terms of who I am, where I am, and what I expect out of this relationship, and also being able to share what you will give in a relationship. So I
Mhm.
think
Th-
those things come
That
with
is it,
maturity.
bro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's it.
yeah,
Yeah.
This, I will
Well,
say this, Chris, to you. I honor just your experience with your wife. You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I would love to have that many years in in my situation now. You know what I'm
wow.
saying?
Yeah.
I honor your growth with her and how you have, definitely, and especially in the last episode, talking about how you all have developed the bumps and bruises that came with learning and kind of like getting to that point because I appreciate that more. I appreciate
Mhm.
the fact that I love to have hard conversations now because they actually those hard conversations, you don't know how much I am more in love. Like I'm like, what? We just
mm.
got through having this conversation? Are you kidding me? I
That's
can
Yeah,
have
cool.
any conversation with you now. Like
Yeah.
when you
yeah,
coming out of stuff like that, you're saying to yourself, like, what's there's nothing that we can't do. And so
right.
I wanted to, just let you know, just being able to continue, Jay, this is also what I feel that, aspiration in some ways to what you were just talking about, that transparency, that knowing, that connection, that it being a before I say I do, I need to know. I need
Yeah,
to be confident in understanding my things because I don't want to come in this situation which I was already in the beginning, which I don't know why people don't understand that shit. But I've been with this person for how many
Yeah.
whatever months or weeks or years we've been together. I should have, in some ways, understood that I didn't have my shit together, so I should have been trying, right, to
yeah,
get it
Yeah.
together. But if you
Wow.
you know you don't want to get to the point where you're standing at the altar, and that is the conversation that you're having with yourself.
sure.
Jay, I'm letting you know right now. At it twice. You don't want to have it. You don't want to have it. You want to be you want to be more you and you can. You can be as crystal clear as water going into that moment and understanding that the only thing you doing there is staring there and standing there staring at that individual that you are going to create the remainder of your life with in
Yeah,
every aspect of your world. And you want to be focused on that. You don't want to be focused on, damn, I ain't tell her this.
Oh,
Damn.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I got this little situation going on and I ain't even told her about that yet.
yeah,
Man, I
yeah,
hope
yeah,
she don't get
yeah.
mad at me when I blah 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 about 5 years
Right,
from now. Da da da. You don't want
right.
to. You don't want.
Yeah,
What you
sure,
don't want, bro.
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I will say I'm just going to throw this. There are a couple thoughts coming to mind here. One, and Jay, you kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. Quest, I don't know how you have the time. Like
Yeah,
I
for
can't even
sure.
imagine.
Man,
I
me neither.
can't imagine having more than one relationship. I just can't. But
Yeah,
respect due for that. But the other part that I give you a lot of respect for is making a choice that's so
yeah,
different from the norm. You know, like it's
Yeah.
whatever the norm is what it is.
yeah,
It can be based in biblical things. It can be based in other things. It doesn't matter. That just is what the norm is. When you want to deviate from that, it takes a lot of courage. And I praise you for being able to do that because I know that's not an easy thing to do.
yeah,
And what's fascinating about it too, just hearing what you talk about, because you're right, there are plenty of people who stand there at the altar looking in the face of the person they're about to marry, knowing that they're holding on to things that they are probably going to take to the grave. I don't think
Hmm.
that that's healthy, you know. So maybe this one to
yeah,
one
It's
is what
not.
you know biblically, whatever it's supposed to be. But I don't look at that and say that that's necessarily a healthy relationship. What you're talking
Yeah.
about doing right now, and that kind of vulnerability and honesty, and showing up as your full self, like it's hard to say that anything can get healthier than that, you know. So
right.
however you find health in a relationship, whatever it
Yeah.
needs to look like, who am I to judge, right? Like it's
That's
what you
right.
have found, and you know what works for you. And I give you a
Yeah.
lot of credit for being willing to step out in that way and find your community, man. Like that's
Man, I
amazing.
appreciate that.
Congrats
I
to you.
appreciate that.
That's what's
It
up.
is. I gotta make sure that the ladies, because that's what we were talking about earlier. The ladies. I know that this is our safe space, and we want to keep that. But I want to let the ladies that are watching us know that I even in some ways coming into this conversation have spoken to my partners and just allowed them to understand that a conversation is taking place, right? Like I think the idea of full transparency needs to
Mm-hmm.
be full transparency, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they're watching, they're gonna see. So, why not, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
not just that, but to allow for everyone to understand this is not a situation of like looking at, well, is this polygamy? Is this blah 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 blah? I want you to understand that these are separate individual ships. It's the same
Mhm.
thing that you would have with your friends. It's exactly. I don't even look at it any different. If this is your best girlfriend,
Mm,
then that's how they are to me.
mm,
Y'all my
mm.
best friends. That's how
Mm-hmm.
they are to me. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. It's no difference other than the fact that when it's a situation of romance and attraction, that is where it becomes a little different, right?
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
But outside of that, I could honestly say that I have like I said before, I got other friends that I share connections with that are very intimate like this, and
Mhm.
it just doesn't have that other aspect. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe that from that aspect is where you create the understanding of what you're willing to take on. I'm willing to take on my partners having partners. My
Mm.
partners have partners. I'm not
Yeah.
even gonna lie about that. They do. So it's not like they don't. They
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with that. Very
Yeah.
much supportive. And even there, if they ask or have any questions that they want to ask me about that nigga.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear. I, I just want to be clear so everybody
Yeah.
kind of understands it's not about that person. It's about
Mhm.
our connection. This
Yeah.
person or these people feel safe enough to where they can even have that type of, come on.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
conversation that we having.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
That's the
That's
That's what's up.
amazing.
conversation if it was her girls that she having with her girls. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying that she not having other conversation with her girls. What I'm saying is that same conversation and where that is and how that kind of flows is the same way it is with us.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
so like I said, and I didn't want to, kind of hog up this episode, but I really want to make it clear that going to that altar, it is more of a symbolism for others than it even could be to yourselves. You, Jay, and your love. You know her. You know her when the lights are not going to be on, when the makeup and suits and dresses is not going to be on, when we not going to be throwing the confetti and rice and all the others that's going to be thrown. When we not doing that and that's not happening, you understand her way more than any of us do.
Sure.
Mm.
And that is a connection that is so deep. And I feel myself, that is marriage.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow.
For me,
Yeah.
I personally don't need to stand there. I don't, me and the creator, we there. I got it. We, we good.
Mhm.
We
That's
Mhm.
what's
good.
up.
What I'm
That's what's
saying
up.
is, I don't have to, I personally don't feel that I got to stand at the altar to receive that same blessing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with anyone having a wedding and however traditionally you look at it. I mean, who cares about that? You should be able to do what the hell you want to do.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that that same emotion that you are there at the altar with right now. I go upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You
That's
know what I'm
awesome,
saying?
man. Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I don't look at it from the standpoint of these things are what's binding that love. I look at the connection that I made, and I say, I love this person without a shadow of doubt. Everything, everything. I take everything for you. This life, I give my life for you,
Mm-hmm.
and really mean it,
Mhm.
Sure.
not
Yeah.
Sure.
just the words.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I hope you had a great time with us here today on the 4050 Social Club. Click the like button below if something today caught your attention and you want to hear and see more. And follow us on our social media platforms that are below. Until we meet again, we hope that you found this healthy and helpful towards making these years the best years of your life.